Good day, everyone. Welcome for our Women in Technical Spaces webinar, themed Engineering the Future, Celebrating Women Technical Brilliance. This inspiring session will spotlight the incredible contribution towards women in engineering with personal stories, insights, advice from leading professionals in the field. This session will be facilitated by me, and my name is Katiso Mokoena. I'm a civil engineer working for Bigen Group, and then I'll be having two speakers, namely Kia van der Merwe and Ms. Noqobo Bongoza. And I'll start with Kia van der Merwe, and I'll read her bio currently. Kia van der Merwe is a professional engineer and a managing director of Kgarebana Civil and Structural Engineer. She has just over 10 years of experience in structural as well as contract administration and monitoring, but has recently mostly focused on contract engineering. She obtained her BH degree at University of Pretoria and her MH structures from University of Witwatersrand. She is currently a member of CESA Pretoria branch as well as CESA Transformation and Development Committee member. Before I could give her actually a space to start speaking, I'll firstly want to actually just thank our annual sponsors, which is the diamond sponsors, which is Investec and other sponsors, gold sponsors, and also our silver sponsors. I'll give back to Mekia to actually go back and give us a presentation.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
And I'm audible, you can hear me.
Just stop sharing mine. I can see yours, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And you can hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to start off by thanking CESA for the opportunity to share my story and my 2 cents on this topic of gender mainstreaming technical women. There are a few questions that have taken tenantship in my head since I was asked to give this talk. The first one is there such thing as gender mainstreaming? The second one is, why are we still talking about gender mainstreaming in 2025? The third one is, the law amendments such as BE legislation, etc., encourage women leadership. For instance, target points a contractor gets for giving work to a Black woman-owned business, extra points if they're youth, etc. However, women continually still feel that they aren't entirely seen on par with men in the same industry. Why is this? Sorry about that. I just want. Why is it refusing to share my screen? Apologies for that. I just want to try moving my slide. Apologies for that. I just want to see why it's refusing me to move on to the next point. Okay.
Maybe Kia, you can just reshare again.
Okay. I think I stopped sharing. Okay.
Okay, it's back online. If you can move to the next slide to see if it's working.
I think I may know what the problem is. I'm not so sure what's going on. We just tested it now and it worked fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. I think I see it's changing. Maybe you can put it on presentation mode.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, there we go.
Okay. So first things first, let me reintroduce myself or add on to what you said. My name is Merwe. I was born on the 13th of May. I'm a proud Taurus. I was born in Brits in the Northwest Province. I'm the second of 4 children and the first daughter to my parents. I'm a mommy to 2 most beautiful little humans. I'm a wife to an amazing and one of the smartest engineers I know. I'm a sister to my 3 amazing siblings, and I'm a professional engineer, owner, and managing director of Kgarebana Civil and Structural Engineers. So where does my story start? I obtained my undergraduate degree at University of Pretoria. My story, however, did not start with civil engineering as my first choice. I started studying chemical engineering at University of Pretoria, and at the end of the second year, I realized that I did not find chemical engineering interesting. The reason I chose it was because my father loved it, and one of his former students was the CEO of Petro SA at the time. He thought if I followed in this guy's footsteps, then I would eventually be a CEO of a big company as well. I had a bit of a dilemma because my father was paying for my fees, so I had to keep up. Hence, I stuck it out for 2 years. And unfortunately, at the time of my dilemma, to quit or to carry on, my mother fell ill, and I had to take time off of university to help look after my 2 younger sisters who were still in high school and primary school at the time. But my father had made it clear that if it's not chemical engineering, he will not be funding my studies any further. So to actually go back to a point as my father's ultimatum didn't actually work because during this time that I took off, it gave me time to think about the trajectory of my career and where I actually wanted to go. But chemical engineering definitely was not where I was staying. So in May 2011, I decided to go to University of Pretoria and see if I can register again to go back into engineering. But at this point, I thought, okay, I like structures, I like architecture, but I still like the engineering part of it. So what can I actually do? So I went back and tried to get into the School of Civil Engineering. My path to civil engineering was not straightforward, as I've mentioned, because I spent 2 years doing chemical engineering and took quite a bit of time off of university. And upon going back, I met up with Prof. Maria, who was a mechanics lecturer. I met him when I was doing mechanics in my first year as a chemical engineering student. And I explained to him my situation, and I actually told him I wanted to go and study civil engineering, to which he actually vouched for me with the head of the department. She was a bit skeptical at the time and apprehensive because, number one, I want to come in at the second semester of the year. And number two, I was a chemical engineering student. So that, when I come back, what will I be placed at? That was where her concerns were. But I persisted, and Prof. Maria also helped. And eventually she came around and I registered as a civil engineering student. Then through Prof. Maria at the end of 2012, I managed to secure a bursary. And at the same year, 2012, I was a structures tutor at the University of Pretoria, and I tutored till the end of my undergraduate studies. So now I had obtained my undergraduate degree, always great. I was eventually and finally an engineer. Where to from here? What is it that I needed to still do? So what happened when I was still a student is I started working with an engineer or training under engineer, where I was designing culverts during my vacation work on the N3. And when I finished my last exam, I had one or two culverts I still had to wrap up. And upon completing that, the technical director told my immediate boss that he thinks the school in Mamelodi that the company had gotten was a great start for me, being that I was a graduate engineer that still doesn't know what they don't know. So I was excited about this. I was an engineer after all. The project was long in the pipelines. The school had approached my previous employer 2 years prior to me starting. So the familiar faces they knew from the company was my boss and the technical director, who were both males with lots of experience. So then here I come, a young woman who looks like this, should still be in high school, coming to dig holes on a property the school struggled to acquire because it is in a residential area. So then they went through this rigorous process to try and get it to rezoning and all of that so that they can eventually build a school there. Now here I come with these guys with no supervision from an elderly male that looked like they had experience, and I'm asking these lab guys to just dig up random holes on the property. So the chairman of the school, which I had never met prior to this moment, asked me to come see him at his office, which I found odd because I had previously sent him an email to say I would like to see him prior to the lab coming, just for me to run through the process of what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and why we actually are there to do it. So I walked into his office after the lab was done and the lab had left, and I greeted him and I said, "Hi, Sam, my name is Kia and I'm from Company X." He asked me what were we doing on the property. I explained that as per my boss's email and my own, we were there to take samples and dig borrows. He asked where my boss was, to which I replied he had another meeting and this was not going to take long. He insisted he wanted to see him he wanted to see him there just to ensure that everything was done correctly and they can't leave a young lady like me to come do a man's job. And what does a young lady like me know about digging and building? And this was actually hurtful to me, but in any case, confused and filled with self-doubt, I thought the lab guys trusted my instructions and we completed the task with no glitches. But the most important person from the client looked at me and didn't see an engineer. Did I not look the part? Do I come across as incapable? Is it because I'm a young woman? Is it because I'm young or a woman or both? So I was filled with too many emotions, and I had to go back and tell my boss what was actually going on. So with confusion and somewhat of a bruised ego, I requested a meeting with the technical director to give feedback, which I rehashed the details of my counter. And I asked him the very same questions that I just posed. Was I because I was young, I was a woman, or both? To which he said to me, he doesn't know, but what he will do is he will call the school and set up a meeting. So he did indeed call the school and set up a meeting with them. And in the meeting, he sort of highlighted to the chairman and to the rest of the team that was there. There were 2 members from the governing body. And he said to them, "This is Kia, and she is our engineer in charge. And he will be available if needed. However, all communication should be addressed to me, as I'm more than capable of running the project." And it's this small act that actually changed the way that I was viewed, even how they communicated with me on site, or on email were also changed. I completed the designs and I handed them to the school. I'm not sure if the school was ever built, as they had run out of money somewhere along the way. But I just wanted to highlight that this might have occurred a little over 10 years ago, but to some extent, this is still prevalent to this day, just as it was 10 years ago. Even as I speak, I still find myself as one of 2 or 3 women in a meeting with 2 or more men. The men are always the majority. If the numbers show an increase in women engineers, why is this still the case? That we find that in boardrooms and technical discussions, we have 2 or less females in these discussions. But what I learned from this encounter with the chairman of the school is that how you introduce yourself is also important. When I met the chairman, I just simply told him my name and the company that I worked for, not necessarily what my role was and what my purpose was there. I just thought explaining high level would run the process too long. So I just said, I'm here, I'm from this company and I'm here. We're just going to be out of your hair, which is something that I think I shouldn't have done. I should have actually gone further to elaborate what it is that I wanted to get to. So after the completion of the school and a couple of projects that I was working on, in February 2016, I was called into the MD's office, and which was strange because normally all of this is normally done through your immediate boss and you get sent to site. But I was called and asked if I was willing to be an ARE on site in Mthatha, and I had 2 weeks to think about it. This was not a norm because in my previous place of employment, the male engineers that were my friends at the time were given at least two days to tie up loose ends. And on day 3, they had to report on site. And I wondered if this was a special provision for women. And if that was, why is it so? But in any case, after I Googled where Mthatha was and what Mthatha looked like, 7 days later, I agreed to go to site, and off to Mthatha I went. My time on site was very interesting. I was the only female in management on the team from both sides. I was a young Black female engineer in a place where this was not the norm. So naturally, in that instance, you either become an inspiration or a threat, or you become both. The males on site did not know how to handle having a female join them. For those that have been on site, there's certain things that happen on site that I think men are comfortable with them happening with just men in the group. So now I came into the circle of males and they didn't know what to do with me. However, what I found interesting was that the female students were confused as to what level of respect I ought to be given. And it was such a conundrum for them because I look like I'm younger than them, and now I'm coming in and I sit in the same meetings that they're not allowed to sit in. So who am I and what am I doing? And the other thing that didn't count in my favor is that I was much younger looking than I was, and some of the female staff members, even from the contractor side, were much older. So it was very difficult for them to take an instruction from someone that looked like they could actually be their child. So during this time on site, the difficulties that I faced, I actually learned a lot about myself. And that's where I actually grew. And the next story that I'm going to tell about my site experience highlights exactly this. So I was actually told later on that there was a going bet on site that I was not going to stick it out. The RE, who was technically retired, so in his entire working life, he's never actually really worked with a female on his team. So he wasn't keen to have one. So he put me in situations that were a bit uncomfortable, but I now in hindsight see them as character building. So interestingly, the RE assigned me to a section with a notoriously difficult foreman. This guy insisted on calling me girly. During our first encounter, he refused to remember my name. For all communication, he called me girly. The girly said this, and I said to the girlie, to which I consistently did not respond to and did not acknowledge his presence on site. So I would talk to his subordinate and flat out ignore him and walk past. But he's never had that because everyone was actually scared of him. So because he's never had an encounter and a pushback like he had, so he avoided me until a time that I rejected a layer that was pumping, and he knew that the layer was not properly compactable because it was wet, but he insisted because he was pressed. So I was on a different section on side, and here comes the Ooms bakkie speeding through and stopped dead right behind a water cart. And the first thing that came out of his mouth when he jumped out of his bakkie was, "Girlie, I've been a foreman longer than your mother has been alive. And I can guarantee you that that layer is good enough. Who do you think you are?" Now, puzzled, everyone knows that you don't answer this guy because everyone is scared of him. Even grown men on site were scared of him. I had to breathe in and think. This encounter wasn't our first one, and in most instances, I chose to keep quiet and go back to the RE. But I realized that that wasn't solving my problem, and I had to stand up for myself. So I said to him, "I'm the quality checker on site, and yes, you may have been a foreman longer than my mother was alive, but clearly there's an issue with your eyesight because the layer is clearly moving under load. I have sent you a video of my visual inspection, but you're welcome to put in another inspection request when the layer is ready. And my name is Kia, not Girlie." Obviously embarrassed, he went back to his bakkie and drove to site to let the RE know about my rude conduct. And to my surprise and to the rest of the team, the RE sided with me and asked the foreman to resubmit a request once he was done and the layer was ready. And one other thing he requested from him was that he goes to me and apologizes for his behavior, which this gesture was a small gesture, but because it came, I believe, from a male that was the same age as this foreman, it changed the perception of the guys on site. And after this encounter, our relationship with the RE was remarkable. The rest of the time that I spent on site was great. I ended up staying on site for 2.5 years, and I was meant to be there for just over a year. So then the other important thing that happened in this time that I always get asked about was, when is the right time to study for your postgraduate? So for me, I saw gaps when I was working on site. So I decided to register my master's in engineering at this time because I had weekends sometimes to myself. I was in a foreign area. So it was quiet. I could actually get the studies done at this time. And looking at the trajectory of my career, studying for my master's during my site work was the most ideal for me. The question that everybody keeps asking me, I think at the end of 2017, I always thought to myself, there should be more that I needed to be doing. And in the time that I was on site, even before I left for site, I used to help my previous employer look for targeted enterprises, so smaller companies to tender with, as it had become somewhat of an obligation for the bigger companies to actually rope in the smaller guys and sort of work together with them to train them. Then I thought to myself, maybe I should register one. And the reason I did was I spent a little over 6 months looking for a Black female-owned company, and I struggled. So I thought, I should be one, right? It's easy. Everyone is looking for it. I mean, I spent 6 months looking for one. Wrong. I was completely wrong. Well, securing the relevant paperwork was fine. Getting your subsidy done and all of that was fine. But getting people to trust you and your capabilities, I learned the hard way that it's not easy. I'm not so sure if it's the same for companies that are led by men and young men for that instance. But certainly for me, it was one of the most difficult things I think I had to go through. The birth of Kgarebana came, as I've mentioned previously, out of a need or what I thought was a niche. And initially, when I thought of a company name, I thought I would name it PH cubed, and short for pink heels and hard hats. It's a bit cliche, I know, but it sounded like it resonated with me at the time because I thought that the pink is needed in construction because everything else that I saw in construction and being on site looked very hard and very brown and bland. And so I wanted something to bring a bit of spark. But Kgarebana actually resonated with me because in my home language, Setswana, Kgarebana means young women. And I am a young woman. So it was actually a point where I needed a name that I thought was perfect and befitting for me. And I realized soon after that there is value to a name. People are not welcoming to unknowns, especially young female ones. I approached many companies begging to collaborate, to be their targeted enterprise or the supply development beneficiary. And it was shocking because what I struggled with when I was working for a generic company and sourcing out these small companies, and it seemed like a tedious job. I thought the pool was actually, free for the taking, but I actually found out that it wasn't. Some companies simply said, we already have enough 30%ers, we don't need any more. And seldomly, I would get one brave company director said to me, but who actually owns your company? Like all the directors, not just you, the face. So I go back to a point where even on site, even with my experiences, a lot of the people that you meet in your encounters as a female professional, they often think that, oh, no, you're just coming in as a face. But there's actually someone else that is more technically inclined behind the face. You will go take the message through to the relevant people. And I went back to my previous employer and I literally begged them to tender with me because I realized how difficult it was to just go out on my own, especially if all I could get reduced to was a face of a company instead of actually the person running the company. They did agree, but with apprehension. And luckily at the time, the system encouraged more partnerships with smaller companies. So we submitted a lot of tenders in that time, even on our own. And, as much as it was difficult and we got rejection letters, but at least we got feedback and we could get the name out there. And at this time, I was a one-man show. I had a lady that was doing administration that came 3 times a week because that's all I could afford. And the chances of getting a project was actually slim to none. So after submitting lots of tenders and not getting feedback or getting rejection, we finally submitted as a joint venture partner with my former employer, a tender, and we were the lowest bidders. But because I was such an unknown, and it came out a lot of times that I was a female and I was very young, even the clients were quite concerned. So I had to go through a series of due diligence where they had to check if, they're not selling me for somebody that is technically inclined, but I can actually speak engineering around the table. And after that gruesome due diligence debacle, we finally were awarded the tender and things were moving in the right direction. And from that lone ranger, I now have 9 other people that work with me. So we've grown to a company of 1 person to 10 people. I just wanted to highlight a few other things that built me up. I was nominated anonymously. I'm still not sure who the person is that nominated me for the African Construction Awards, but I'd still like to say thank you to them. I was the second runner-up of the Women in Construction Young Entrepreneur Rising Star Award in 2018. And the women that were with me in that category had been in the industry for 20 plus years. And even then, they still felt that representation of females was still not enough. So here we are again in 2025, and we're still talking gender mainstreaming. And I was also asked to speak at the leadership talk where I focused on young leadership, because I do believe that I am a young leader, and these are members of my team, some of the members of my team. The question that brought us here to this webinar is how technical women actually manage. I'd like to call it the juggling act. For instance, with me, with a growing company and a growing family, juggling everything is somewhat stressful. But I realized that it's not impossible. But if you have a supportive partner, the workload always seems a bit less. Or if you have sufficient support from your employer, that workload is also seemingly a bit lighter. Just like the two scenarios that I highlighted earlier on in my presentation, where I had men stand up for me, and that later on resulted in things being a bit easier. The trick when you have a lot of things to do is to know what to prioritize and when. Do I think there is work-life balance, especially for technical women? I'd say a solid no. Sometimes your professional life requires a little more from you. Late nights on site, problems that you encounter that are unforeseen, community issues, you name them. And other times, all you can be is a mom, a wife, a daughter, sister, or a friend. And it's okay to sometimes put a back burner on your work. How do you manage as a technical woman? I think you need, as I've mentioned, a reliable support structure. And this also includes at your place of employment. For me, it's my family, and luckily I work with most members of my family, so that also helps. What does the future hold? I hope to grow the company with more deserving women. Like I said, there's power to a name. I hold a Kgarebana for a reason, and I believe that I will achieve the goal of appointing more Kgarebanas to join me, so that I can put more women in boardrooms that can contribute immensely, technically capable women. I hope to see palpable change, not just change on paper. Or women use the spaces of companies and the companies that don't actually make decisions in. So I actually hope to see technical women, technically capable women, sit in more decision-making roles within companies. I hope to walk into meetings where it does not imply or assume that the woman is there to take minutes or their presence is needed to have a quorum. I find it very interesting most of the time where you get people saying, oh, we need 2 more women for us to actually get a quorum. I would like to actually see more women come in and make a difference. I hope to inspire and motivate more people to follow their dreams, just like the guys on the right. I hope everybody knows who these famous 3 guys are. Even when you're scared and not sure where to go, there's always a good Samaritan that's going to help you through a situation, whether it's your boss standing up for you, whether it's you learning to find your own strength and your own voice as a woman, as a technical woman. Whether it's you gaining the confidence to actually sit and tell people that you are where you are because you worked hard for it, and not because there was a quota system that required a certain number of females to be on board. I just would like to leave you with a few points to think about. The numbers show an increase in women in engineering. However, the challenges women faced 20 years ago are still prevalent now. How can you help? As a fellow female, as a fellow technical woman, as a man, how can you actually help to change the narrative where, like I've said, we are not seen as people that just come into meetings and take minutes. I know a lot of female engineers that have actually quit engineering. A lot of the people I studied with went into banking. And growth of a lot of women in our industry has occurred through some form of camaraderie, after having gained the trust of their compatriots like Maari. He had to see that I could stand on my own for him to trust me with more decisions. And it sometimes feels like a baptism of fire. But what I've learned is throughout the years, I have been called words like, oh, she's aggressive, oh, she's difficult, oh, she's bossy, as a female. But I would have the same males on site that were equally as assertive. And people would say, oh, no, he's such a great person. He will make such a great MD, or he'll make a great, powerful leader. As a woman, I say to you, let them call you bossy, let them call you difficult. You are not a female engineer, technologist, or technician. You're an engineer, a technologist, or a technician. I don't think there's any gender prefixes that are needed. Thank you very much for listening to my story, and I hope I inspire you.
Thank you so much, Kia, for sharing your valuable insight and experiences with us. Your journey as a professional engineer and a managing director, navigating challenges in the technical spaces of engineering is really, truly inspiring. We recognize the unique perspective and challenges you've encountered as a woman in engineering, and we really deeply appreciate you sharing them with us. Before we can proceed and I can actually introduce our second speaker, I would really like to encourage all the delegates to please share your questions and your comments in the chat box. Then we will actually go through the comments when our second speaker finishes. I'll now introduce our second speaker. Our second speaker is Noqobo Bongoza, who is a technologist. Noqobo Bongoza holds a diploma in civil engineering. She furthered her studies and obtained a BTech from NMU, majoring in water engineering. She's a certified project manager with PMI and a professional registered as a PR tech with EXA. She has 24 years of varied experience in project management, contract administration, construction supervision, design, and this experience varies over several infrastructure projects such as bulk, reticulation, water supply, and roads. 20 years have been spent at Hedge, where she is currently working as a project manager. She has served as a branch chairperson for CESA in Bora K branch and currently SAIS membership chairperson and executive board member. She also serves as a member of the Civil Engineering Department Advisory Board at NMU. I would like to give a platform to Noqobo Bongoza to actually share her experiences with us.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Noqobo. It's not an X, it's a Q. Noqobo Bongoza. As mentioned, I work for HED. And I think to pave a way for the young engineers, I understand now we need not call ourselves female engineers. I feel it is important for me to explain who I am. I am a mother to Iviwe, and Iviwe is 20, I think he's 26. So you can add and know that I am a bit of an older person. Why it is important for me to mention that I'm a mother, I am one of those that actually fell pregnant very early in their lives. So how your life how your life begins does not necessarily determine where you are going to end. So as a teenage mom, I have managed to achieve everything that I have. So for those that had fallen into that trap, you must not despair. You can still make a career. I am a hiker. A person would ask, why must you mention that you are a person that hikes? there is a lot of similarity between hiking and navigating a career. So when you hike, you know that you want to get to a higher place, just to see what is up there. And it is not an easy journey, it's a difficult one. And you need to practice and you need to get the right gear and all. So hiking helps me a lot in terms of taking the principles for preparing for a hike and using them in my career. Then, as mentioned, over the past 25 years, I have managed to work in construction, I have managed to work in contracts, and currently I am working in project management. Therefore, where you are at the moment does not necessarily mean you are going to end up there. You still need, there are still chances. So you can be doing the job that you are doing because your company has that type of work at that time, but you must know that you can, there are opportunities of change, so you can do something else. And then I call myself a street mentor. Naturally, I cannot go past a young engineer making a mistake without saying anything. And naturally, I find it is my job to ask young engineers that I meet in the passage, why are you still at Hedge? Are you enjoying your time at Hedge? Have you filled in your EXA form? Just in passing to people. So I'm a street mentor. There are many people that I mentor in an, I would say in an informal manner. And then I felt it is important for me to mention that I have been a finalist in various awards, or the two that we can see. The reason that I am mentioning this, winning is not the ultimate thing. Being a finalist is something on its own. We will not always win in our lives. However, we've got to continue to try. Even if we do not win, the effort that you have put in for that award, the effort that you put in on anything that you do is actually rewarding at the end of the day, even if you are not the winner. I have listed the voluntary associations that I have served in, starting from when I was a young person. I was in the YPF as a branch chairperson, ended up in the national committee. I was a branch chair for CESA in Bodakai. I am a committee member with CESA, chairing the membership committee. I also serve on the board of CESA PTY, and also I am on the advisory board at NMU. This is not flexing. This is just a matter of indicating that as people, we need to be actually giving back to this industry. If as females, we are saying sometimes it is not conducive for us, it is us that are going to change the industry through our involvement. Now, I need to share a bit about my journey into engineering. Unfortunately for me, I come from the rural areas and there was no civil engineer in my area, somebody that could have told me that you are interested in civil engineering. So I went to boarding school and they were building or rather constructing some underground water tanks. They had a crusher on site for the concrete aggregate that they were using. I followed their whole concreting process whenever I had the time. I would look at their construction progress with interest, but I didn't know what I was interested, why I was attracted to this. I only learned later on that that would have been a great motivation for me to become a civil engineer. but due to lack of mentors and people that knew in my time, I didn't get that inspiration. However, by chance, I got into civil engineering. In fact, it was my mother's choice. I knew that I was not going to do anything chemistry related, so I was happy with land surveying. I applied to PE Technicon at the time. A brochure came back that had civil engineering. My mother was a very inquisitive person. She read the brochure and found civil engineering and found surveying as part of the subjects. She just asked, do you want this one with a variety? I said, ma'am. And that's how I ended up in engineering. And then I have shown some logos there. CESA, as mentioned, I am a PR Tech. I am a PMP in terms of registration as a project manager. These accolades are actually, or these certifications are important for us in terms of enforcing to people that when you look at me, don't see the young woman that Kia was talking about. See me as a suitably qualified person for this role that I am in. There are days where it becomes important to actually attach your signature with all of these things after your name so that a person can acknowledge that they are talking to a knowledgeable person, a trusted person in the trade. So it is important for us to get these certifications. My career milestones, we can see that I started working on site, a pure site girl that came with similar challenges as what was shared earlier. Then I transitioned into being a resident engineer, building from being a site agent. I was just looking at it from the other side as a consulting engineer. And then I transitioned into project management, and I have been working on infrastructure projects. In 2022, I took another leap and came to Johannesburg at the age of over 40 to start a career in project management for mining projects. It's still a new thing for me. I feel like I am the young engineer from 2001 because it has brought other challenges in my career. So it never ends. You journey, you get to a peak in something, you need to encourage yourself to go higher and higher. I wanted to share about my life as a young engineer on site. And I understand that there could be somebody here that would be experiencing something similar, and Kia said something similar. So I was working for a small construction company. So there was the foreman and I was this young girl. So no one wanted to listen to me. And my only defense at the time was my technical knowledge. I have shared this picture with the steel that has got a radial flow. So now we had this design to implement. So I told the foreman, the spacing of 200 all around is not going to work. It's got to be narrower towards the center. And he said he has never done that before. He worked on equal spacing. And then the team on site listened to him. They laid the steel, and then they counted all the bars were there, and they still had a gap. So I asked, can you give me an opportunity to do it my way, the way I have learned? And they still worked. So even in your encounters, remember that your knowledge will actually be your defense all the time. And then on site, sometimes it is not a safe environment. I had an incident, this emanated from, I would say, age again. So I was working on site as a site agent with people older than me. And then the local employees were actually people my age. So over lunch, I would actually sit with the people my age. So the team that I stayed with at the campsite believed that I liked the locals more than them. So they just did not like that. So one Saturday morning, John knocked at my door. I opened, he was wielding a knife, telling me how much I preferred the other guys from them. So I managed just to hold his hand. When the other guys came, it was a matter of them telling me that I'm the one that has got to let go, not the other guy. But fine, at the end, I stopped staying on site. I had to find somewhere to stay in the village that we were working in. Now, as Kia indicated, life on site is not easy. However, site work helps us in terms of building our technical capacity. So we do need to go to site, and we will not die from working from site, though it is difficult. Life on site, as you can see, these containers is where we stay. Your bed is there. You do not get the nicest food. As you can see, this campsite is an example. It's far away from everything. So life on site becomes lonely. You do not even have people to talk to. You lose your dress sense because every day you are wearing PPE. You forget about nice clothes. But I picked up a point from Kia. With all the hardness and the loneliness on site, she took it as an opportunity to further her studies. So even if you are a young engineer now that is on site, you can further your studies, use that time, and make something positive out of the difficulty that you experience on site. Now, I want to share a few things that I have gathered along my career. Anyway, the picture on the right-hand side is a project that I started from picking water samples up until a dam was built. So this is Xhosa Water Supply Scheme. I had learned contract admin on this project. I had learned project management on this project. There's a lot this project, I would say, made me. Now, going back to the enablers that help us to advance our careers in engineering as females, technical excellence, every opportunity that arises for learning, take an opportunity and learn. Sometimes what you want to learn may not necessarily be the focus area for your company. Spend money on yourself and study when you can. Also, as females, we are known to be these weak beings and everything negative about our emotions. So what we need to learn, we need to develop our EQ so that we are able to stand against anything that comes to us, so that we are able to make rational decisions every time we have got to make decisions. Another thing that is important is the support system. Create people around you that will actually help you in the most difficult times. And even when life is easy, you must just have people around you. From my career, there are a few lessons that I have learned. As a young engineer, I enjoyed the mentorship of my former manager. And then as an older professional that came to Joburg, I came here. I didn't look for a mentor. I just stayed by myself without any guidance. And that has not worked for me. It has actually made me regress in terms of things that I had already known that I could have been excelling on by now. So if you do not have a mentor, go get a mentor now. A mentor doesn't have to come from your company. They can come from anywhere, but also in your company, try and have a mentor. The second thing is networking. It is important for us to be networking. There is stuff that doesn't exist in our work environment, but it exists in a friend's environment. Then sharing with people actually help. Also within your work environment, there are people in other disciplines, there are people in other departments. Make time to talk to those people, understand what they can do, offer your help to them. That actually keeps you engaged all the time. Another thing that we always neglect, we wait, my manager is gonna give me work. You do not even understand how your company operates. So it is important for us to understand how the company works and even involve ourselves in other areas other than what we are employed for, so that we can understand better the environment that we work in. And also career mapping. No one will come and map out your career for you. You are the one that knows what your desires are. And the other people, from what you say and what your wish is, can actually help you achieve. So be the one that tells your managers, this is where I see myself in the next 2 years. How can you help me achieve that? And then, some word of advice: embrace your challenges as learning opportunities. Build your network early. Don't let things fall apart before you start collecting them again. Just build your network early. Stay current with technical and social trends. Advocate for yourself and others. Sometimes we are fortunate enough to be sitting in the right spaces. It is not right that you are able to sit in that management meeting and they talk about somebody that is needed, and there's another female that you know, and you do not mention that name. It is important for us as females to be advocates for one another. And then where possible, try and be a specialist in something. You do not have to go and work for a specialist department or anything. Within what you are doing, make sure that you actually master it. I will not repeat mentorship. I would like all of us to have people that we are mentoring as we are also getting mentored. And then another important thing is volunteerism through these organizations that we believe are advocating for us as engineers. If we are not at those tables as female engineers, who is going to bring our problems to the table? No one. Therefore, it is important for us to volunteer our time for the change that will actually benefit us at the end of the day. Now, the question is, it has been long. Are we still talking about gender equality in 2025? Everybody should be understanding this. The reality is discrimination still occurs. An opportunity comes, you look at a young woman, we are like, hi, this one looks like she's gonna fall pregnant soon. So this long-term opportunity is not going to work for her. When discrimination occurs, we need to remember that there is always a valid reason. There is always a good reason why not. So we need to be aware about our environments and see the different forms of discrimination that occur. Abuse still occurs. Kia mentioned it earlier, and sometimes it is not being viewed as abuse because we just believe Mr. So-and-so is a stern person. If he talks to you, the reality is that is abuse sometimes. So we need to be the ones that advocate for a psychologically safe work environment. Lack of participation in leadership and decision-making, that is what still exists for women. It is for us to not fight, to work ourselves into those positions. We've got legislation on our side in terms of the Employment Equity Act. We've got the Sustainable Development Goals. Our companies are busy with diversity and inclusion. And then there are structures like CESA, having webinars like the one that we have. We are the ones to participate in these. And then lastly, on this one, we need to be heard. It's not going to be easy for us to be heard. We need to be the ones that take the courage to actually stand up and voice the challenges that we have. So on this one, I would just want to say, gender inequality still exists. However, it is on us as the female engineers to break these barriers. No one will break them for us. My call to action, it is us that, my call to action to every one of us, we need to be supporting the gender mainstreaming organizations around us. So be in that diversity and inclusion committee in your workplace, even outside work, wherever there is something that is for the emancipation of women, be there. If there is an employment equity committee in your workplace, be part of that committee, voice your concerns there. There are social committees in our workplaces. Sometimes even the events that get organized don't necessarily work for all of us. Be in that social committee to influence such that things work for us as females. And then in terms of sustainability of females in the engineering profession, we are the current role models. We did not get role models, but we are the current role models. Therefore, we are the ones to be reaching out to schools to encourage young ones to actually pursue a career in STEM. For instance, myself, in my personal capacity, I support a class. I supported them in grade 10. I'm supporting them now in grade 11 with the hope that their class, by the time they are in grade 12, they will get 100% mark pass for their maths and physics class. It's many things that we can do. And then also, we need to be joining the networks and initiatives that promote women in engineering. So we have got to outnumber the men in these, in the engineering gatherings. If all of us would attend, we would be more than them sometimes because some of them are lazy. I would like to stop at this point and thank you for listening to me. I hope that we are all encouraged to take up the space and have the courage to do all of these things so that we can have a conducive working environment, conducive industry to work in as females. I thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Apologies for that. I was struggling to unmute on my side. Apologies for that. I was struggling to unmute on my side. Thank you, Noqobo, for sharing your experiences and your ability to overcome personal challenges such as being a teenage mother while still climbing the ladder of success in your field. It's a testament to your resilience and determination. We recognize the unique perspectives and challenges that both of you have encountered as women in engineering, and we deeply appreciate you sharing with them. We'd like to open floor to our audience for questions and answers. Please share your questions and comments in our chat box. I actually have got one question for you. What changes do you think could be implemented within engineering industry to foster more inclusive environment for women? And how can professional organizations like CESA and CESA contribute to driving these changes?
Is that a question coming to
Yes,
Kia?
for both of you, yes.
I was
Okay.
You may go first.
Okay. Oh, I go first. The reality is there is nothing wrong, in my view, with the industry itself. What is wrong is the attitudes of the people that are in the industry. So it is a matter of changing men to understand that we are not female engineers, we are engineers. We went to the same classes, we use the same spec computers, so there is no difference. They must just give us work without thinking about our gender. I always, my view is, do not view me as a female, view me as an engineer at work. I was never employed because I was female. I got hired in a technical position for my technical capacity. It's an attitude issue, not a,
I would actually like to echo the same thing. I think it's an attitude issue. And like I said in my presentation, it seems like we still need some form of camaraderie from our male counterparts for us to actually make it somewhere. What I would actually challenge for organizations such as CESA, which I'm grateful for them putting together this series of gender mainstreaming, is that we carry on putting voices out there of women to highlight to them that the system has not actually been fixed. We still are talking about the same things. I mean, since Noqobo was there 20 years ago, we come in now and we're still facing the same challenges. So it's not an industry problem, it's an attitude problem. And I think we should do more of these kind of talks to get through to the guys that, listen, this is the trajectory that the industry needs to move in.
Thank you so much. Now I'll go back to our chat box to see if we have some comments or questions from everybody.
Katiso, I would like to respond to one question there. It comes from an anonymous attendee.
Okay.
The person wants to know if there are courses that are meant for confidence building. There are no special courses for women for coping. However, there are generic courses like a course in emotional intelligence. That is a good course to attend. There are things like Toastmasters that actually help us in terms of boosting our confidence. So you will not find specific courses designed for the industry. It is just generic stuff.
No, thank you so much for that. I'm not sure if there are any particular questions in the chat box that we can answer. Yeah, I'm not sure if you've seen any question that is directly related to you.
Yes, there's one from Menentle that says, I would like to know what is the proper way, or how do we approach people or companies to tender with you or to joint venture with you? You cannot make people do anything, unfortunately. In my case, I went back to people that know my work ethic and know my track record, and that's where I started. As I've said, it's very difficult in the industry for people to trust an unknown name and an unknown person. So your first good start would be with people that can somewhat vouch for you work ethic wise. And word spreads within the industry. Once you do one or two good jobs, it will start spreading and going on. But you cannot make, if there isn't any particular way you can go about asking people. I would always say the first start would be with people that you have worked with at some point in your career.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I also see there is a question. It's about how does one actually go about finding a mentor? I saw Noqobo, you spoke about mentoring so much in your presentation. Maybe it would be good if you have to both maybe answer it.
Okay, mentoring is a relationship. So it is a relationship whereby you have got somebody that coaches you, somebody that helps you with opportunities. So the first thing is, there are those people that we admire. You look at this one and think, oh, she's so successful. I want to be like her. Go speak to the person. I admire what you have achieved. I would like to achieve what you have achieved and more, or I want to achieve in that other area. How do I do it? And then that person actually gets to journey with you. So that's that's how mentoring works. Sometimes companies assign people mentors. The assigned mentors sometimes don't do mentorship. And then sometimes the assigned mentors, because they have got passion for mentoring, it actually works out. So look for somebody. It's a relationship.
For Kia, any tips for an engineer who's shy away from conflicts to become more assertive in the industry?
Unfortunately, you cannot go into our industry at this point as well as a shy and a person that shies away from conflict, because the way the industry is now set up is we have to look at conflict head on. We are now faced with community issues where from a consultant point of view and even from a contractor point of view, you have to negotiate with local labor, you have to find this, you have to do this. And one, more often than not, because you are not giving people what they want to hear, you will end up in a conflict one way or another. What I would say to someone that shies away from conflict is to learn and understand that conflict is inevitable. One way or another, you will disagree with someone, but be steadfast in what you know. We go back to whether it's technical, whether it's contractor based, whatever it is, just be steadfast in knowing that as per the contract or as per design, we can't do the following. Stand your ground, but with facts. Make sure that you always are armed with facts. And it doesn't even have to be a conflict. Just say to them, I don't agree with you because based on design, we cannot do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So just state facts and carry on with it. But there isn't any other way to be in our industry and say you would rather shy away from conflict, because one way or another you will have to deal with it and learn conflict resolution fast.
No, thank you.
Katiso, there's a question relating to how much design work do we still get to do. I will talk for myself on this one. What actually happens in the engineering space, probably after 20 years of working, there are two things that happen. Either you remain on the technical side as a technical expert, or you get into the managerial side. For instance, as a project manager manages a project. A project manager is not a technical expert, but the engineering work or the engineering knowledge that I have helps me with the decision making on the project. Design, I haven't really, I haven't done designs probably in the last 10 years, but I have been working on engineering related things where my engineering knowledge is applied. So the more you work, there are two parts.
No. Thank you so much, all for joining today's webinar, and we hope you found the discussion insightful. This is actually part of the series, and we look forward to bringing more engaging and informative sessions later on this year. I would like to thank our speakers and everybody who actually joined this. This was very, very insightful, and it was very, very informative as well. I hope everybody learned, and I hope in our next webinar that is coming, everybody will be joining again.
Sorry, Katiso, I would just like to add my 2 cents when it comes to the previous question about how much design work we still do. Very minimal. My last design was last year, November. I do design projects of stuff that I call passion projects. So I choose from my team things that resonate with me. So for the last design I did, it was a waterhole for elephants. I love elephants and I love animals. So that I personally designed, but for the most part, very minimal design work. We oversee a lot of stuff, but not the physical work.
No, thank you so much. Yeah, I think also there are no more questions that I can see in the chat box. Thank you so much, unless if there's any other comments from you guys.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I will stop the recording. Thank you.
Thank you.